What's up, guys? It's Josh from Cardfight Empire here today, finally, with my Chicago video. So, for those of you who don't know, and maybe you watch my channel, maybe you don't know what happened or whatever, or maybe you're here because you do know, I won first place BCS first fall regionals in Chicago for standard B block in Chicago. So yeah, I basically played Aquaforce here. So I'm going to go over my deck about kind of like the middle of the video. So if you guys want to skip to that, go ahead and skip to that. But if you guys want to watch the full video, you're welcome. I want to start out with a couple of shout outs because I believe that shout outs are important. People don't really watch them if they're at the end. So first, kind of talk about my trip a little bit, then I'll go into my deck and my matchups. So let's get right into it. So first, start off the trip, I flew into Chicago, I visited family, so I definitely want to give out a shout out to my grandparents. They live in Chicago. A shout out to my grandparents, shout out to my friends, John Howard and Fred Gethers. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm bad with last names that are complicated. But yes, shout out to them for being so kind to me during the trip, helping me playtest, especially Fred, helping me playtest till 4 a.m. because that's the key strategy for winning. You always got to playtest till 4 a.m. Thank you to Justin Dunbar for helping me playtest till pretty late as well. He was really helpful to me in deciding that I wanted to play Aquaforce, actually, because before this whole event I was actually going to play Nova Grappler. So when I was going to play Nova Grappler, I discovered that it really doesn't win that often against Melody. It kind of has problems with Melody unless you get really lucky or you get like your rush going really well, and I wanted something that no matter how far ahead Melody is, like, he can just gimp them out of the win, and that happens to be this deck right here. So this card is broken in every single matchup, Glory Maelstrom. So this card is super good against Melody because it blocks out their intercept, so it blocks out their Fina. Some of their strongest things that they're able to do, block with grade 3s and block with multiple cards in their hand because they have a lot of card advantage. Like, they're just not able to do any of that because Maelstrom blocks that off completely and totally. So that's what, and sometimes you can even win the game. One of my rounds I played against Melody and I won the game while my opponent was on grade 2. So definitely really important for trying to win the matchup and trying to go for wins. So next I want to thank Jonathan Owens, Justin Dunbar, I already said his name, but I'll say it again, and then Jacob Harden. These are the Team Triple Sleeve TCG guys. They're really cool. I hung out with them the entire weekend. We had a lot of great laughs, fun. We went to go get deep dish pizza together, and we just did all this stuff. Target dealt with crazy racist Uber drivers and all this crazy adventurous stuff. So really thank you to them for making my ribs hurt because I went to bed every single night with a smile on my face, which, you know, when you're dealing with everyday life, like, it's nice to be able to get out and do something different and be able to, you know, enjoy time with friends or whatever. So I was really appreciative to you guys, if you're watching this video, for making me laugh and just letting me have like a really good time at the event. Also, special shout out to Dunbar because Dunbar would have got top 8 on day 1, but Bushroad added that extra round and then he lost, so he didn't get top 8, which was unfortunate. Then day 2 he came back strong, even though he wasn't that happy about it. He came back strong. He finished strong. Like, I got scrubbed day 2. Like, it was ridiculous. There was like so many like Neo Nectar Ezreal matchups, and I just like lost. I was playing Luard, so I just got scrubbed day 2, which is crazy because Luard ended up winning the event, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, special congrats to Justin for making top 8 in Premium as well. Next round of shoutouts goes to China Ross, Bailey Carrot, Dominic Manalo, and John Tehayden. So these are my Vision peeps, my peeps on the Vision team, minus one very special boy that I'm sure we all know because of the memes and whatnot, but I'm not going to go into that. So the Vision peeps, the cool Vision peeps, I wanted to give a shout out to them. They were really, really cool the entire weekend. It was really cool hanging out with them. They all like went through their like special Vanguard struggles throughout the weekend. Like, John got 3rd in standard. China did really well. Bailey did really well, but they just didn't happen to top near the end. Dominic also did really well. So, you know, shout out to them. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that John was like 1 round off from getting top 8 in even premium. He played as well in premium, so they're still really good players, really good individuals as well, and I was really thankful to them for letting me hang out with them the time of the weekend that I did hang out with them, and I also really enjoyed their company. Moving on, Christian, Alex, and Bryce, both of our TOs, I believe they're called, or basically our head organizers and the person that runs the event. And basically, you guys know Christian, you guys know Alex, you guys know Bryce. Bryce is like a head judge at almost every event. So I wanted to thank them, give a special shout out to them, because there's not a lot of people that honestly, truly give shout outs to the judges for the time that they sacrifice. Like, they're not getting paid like $1 million an hour, guys. They're like literally not getting paid that much, and they're here for you guys' enjoyment. So at the end of the day, no matter what happens with the additional rounds and stuff like that, they're just trying to make sure that a tournament is run well, and it's not their fault if like software is the way that it is, or you know, whatever happens with the tournament, it's not their fault. They try their best to run the tournament as well as they can. So shout out to those 3 individuals, because I know personally that they try their best to make every event as great as it can be. Also, shout out to Cameron, Big Cam, my boy. He won a buddy fight on Sunday, so he'll be going to Japan with me, so that'll be great, hanging out in Japan with my boy. Also, shout out to Mr. Matt Gideon for planning bowling with us on the night that I won. So on Saturday night going into Sunday, we went bowling, so that was really fun. I destroyed everyone. I mean, we were in 2 different teams, but the team that I was on, I destroyed them, except for Alex was very close. Then shout out to Cam, because I fought him in the earlier rounds of Standard, and he stayed in the tournament the entire time, played all the way through, gave it his all, and remained X2 so that it would carry my tiebreakers to the top. So big shout out to the homie. Like, definitely didn't have to do that. He could have just dropped like everyone else, even like knowing that X2s weren't going to make it. So big shout out to the homie for doing that for me, and for our first opponent. And then shout out to my friend Sakib. This is actually his deck, his Yu-Gi-Oh sleeves, all this stuff, which Bushiroad made me take off in the finals and re-sleeve, because they were like, we don't want Konami sleeves on there and stuff like that. So shout out to him, because I definitely wouldn't have been able to have access to run Aquaforce had it not been for Sakib. And shout out to Edward Von Maz in that same respect, because he also really helped me with the list, and my list is like almost exactly identical to his, literally, that he won PPG Richmond, I believe it was, or PPG, like some PPG in the Northeast. So shout out to all of them, and if you shout out to all of the other parties as well. If I didn't mention your name specifically, please don't get offended. I'm just very tired. I've had a very long week, so yeah, if I forgot you, I promise you I didn't forget you specifically. But thank you guys for coming up to me saying, oh, it's Cardfight Empire, getting me to sign cards. I always enjoy interacting with everyone that I possibly can, and I appreciate you guys supporting the channel as much as you guys do as well, for those of you who are like consistent watchers. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for coming up. You guys made my weekend. Thank you guys for cheering me on when I was in top 8. There was a couple of you that were on the side, probably about 10 of you specifically cheering me on in top 8. So just thank you guys for all the support, and I really can't say like how much, I really can't express like how much that means to me, because you guys never know what people are going through, and just support means a lot. But I think right here I'm gonna cut into my deck profile portion of the video, so let's slide right over there. What's up, guys? I'm here with the deck profile portion of my Chicago vid, so hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get right into it. So funny story, I actually didn't run this starter. Somewhere in between unsleeving my deck for the stream, when Bushiroad wanted me to take off the Konami sleeves on this deck, somewhere in between that, I lost the Officer Cadet Eric that was in this deck. So I actually just switched it out with Blow Bubble Draco Kid, because I don't have another Eric. So I just switched it out with this. Obviously the same starter, but run Eric if you really want to be good, because he has a freaking beam sword, so that matters. Moving into the grade 3s, we had 4 Glory Maelstrom. Obviously I talked about this a lot. or I'm going to talk about this a lot in my my matchups. So Glory Maelstrom just really seals the game against a lot of different decks, and it's your best bet for winning against Melody, the most popular deck in the format. So definitely run 4. You're definitely crazy if you don't run 4, and definitely hope that you get into this card. I mean, you probably will, because this deck, when you run like any kind of trigger and then 6 draws, you actually thin your deck quite a bit between like this, restands with regular Maelstrom, searches with Nikolos, and you just have multiple ways to thin your deck. So you probably will most likely end up getting into Glory Maelstrom. There was only one game where I did not get into Glory Maelstrom, and that was the very first game that I played at the regionals against Justin Dunbar. So then moving on to our next 3, we run 4 regular Maelstrom. Obviously, regular Maelstrom is really good against everything. You can attack into rear guards with your first 2 attacks, and then attack Vanguard with the last 2 attacks, making it pressure your opponent to either give them that choice of, do I want to counterblast or do I want them to restand? So they can choose to guard all of your attacks if they want to, but most likely they can't do that, and even if they do have the option to do that, they're not going to do that because it would be suboptimal. Like there was times where my opponent blocked my entire Maelstrom turn, and I'm just like, okay, well, that's cool for you. You just wasted like 7 cards in your hand to block my whole turn. So, and you still don't have any counterblast to show for it. So basically just be very careful with specific matchups, giving them counterblasts and stuff like that as well. You can also damage deny them. Also, the first ability of this card also gives you 3k, really good against other Axel and especially Protect decks, because it makes a lot of your 9ks able to hit 12k, and it makes your Vanguard specifically able to hit Force, making it a 15k. Then I ran 3 Riptide Dragon. This card was actually clutch like AF, and like clutch as hell basically. Because I ran 3, I always for some reason had like at least 1 if not 2 of these in my hand when I got ready to do regular Maelstrom turn, and this is really broken on Glory Maelstrom turn, but especially on regular Maelstrom turn, because it becomes too big of an attack for them to like reason with themselves to guard, so they end up letting it through, and then that ends up letting you get your Maelstrom restand, which since you run 6 draws in this build, you're able to get away with discarding like actual like fodder that you don't need rather than actual cards that are good. Moving on to our 2s, I'm gonna put this one in the front actually, because the person that this deck actually belongs to only has 1 holo and 3 regular Algos. So Algos is our ideal grade 2 target in the deck. Every time that I rode it, honestly, in the tournament, I felt good. Because usually when you ride it, you actually usually have a Tidal Assault. It's like crazy not to have a Tidal Assault or a Coral Assault at the very least. So I had like a really good, like this deck has a really good grade 2 setup turn, like really consistently, especially because your grade 1 searches out Algos. So if anything, riding Algos on turn 2 is really consistent. And it basically allows you to get in all your multi-attacks, and then if you, I think max you can get 5 attacks. Yeah, you can get 5 attacks because you have 2 soul, and then you go attack with Tidal Assault, attack with Tidal Assault again, attack with Algos, attack with Tidal Assault again, and then attack with Coral Assault preferably, and then shove it into soul and draw a card because you did 4 or more battles during that turn. So 5 attacks on your opponent on grade 2 when they don't check any damage triggers is really brutal. And God forbid you check a front trigger when you actually do attack with Algos, like it's just very good. Then we run 4 Coral Assault, obviously one of the newer cards in the set, in this most recent set. One of the MVPs of the deck, honestly. This card is right behind Riptide Dragon in terms of utility with Glory Maelstrom, because the bigger that your cards can attack for on their own, the more you want to put them on Excel 2 markers or Excel 2 circles, and then you're able to just swing at them with Glory skill plus its own skill, and then this becomes something suddenly that your opponent cannot block with 1 card. So this card by itself can attack for 24, and then if it's on an Excel 2 circle, it's 29. If it's on Excel 1 circle, it's 34, which is already, not enough for your opponent to block. But then on top of that, it gets the 10k from Glory Maelstrom, and then a 10k if you check a front trigger. So it literally just becomes like insane, and it also fuels your soul for this next card that we're about to talk about, and allows you to draw a card. So next card that we're about to talk about is Tidal Assault. If you guys played the old version of the game at all, like G Series, you guys know how good this card is and continues to be into V Series, but it just basically costs Soul Blast now instead of being free. So this card basically allows you to attack twice, and if you're attacking the first battle of the turn, then you're able to restand with no negative power side effects. But if you attack after that, then you Soul Blast and it loses 5, but then it can attack twice, which is really cool because if you have 2 Tidal Assaults out on the field, and let's say you go into Glory Maelstrom turn and they're at 5 damage, you can attack with this Glory Maelstrom for 19, Soul Blast 1, restand this, and then attack with Glory Maelstrom to see if you get any fronts. And then if you do get any triggers, I would put it on this. If you get any individual triggers, which what I mean by that is anything that's not a front trigger, so your draw triggers or your heals, if you get any specific triggers, I would put it over here, because basically what you're going to do is you're going to attack here for 19, then you're going to attack with Glory Maelstrom, see if you get any triggers. If you do, stack them here. If you get a front trigger, it doesn't matter because it's going everywhere automatically. Then you attack with this, then you attack with this, and you Soul Blast 1, it loses 5, but then it swings a second time. So definitely very, very useful for kill turns of Glory Maelstrom. That was our grade 2 lineup. So going on to our grade 1 lineup, we run 4 Storm Rider Nikolos. So Nikolos actually has a Vanguard Rearguard skill, which I was talking about earlier when I was talking about Algos, because this card is directly related to that card. So this card says when placed, look at the top 7 cards of your deck for an Algos, and then you can add it to your hand. And even if you don't add it to your hand, if you do or you don't, it gains 3,000 power. So if you don't have a grade 2 to rush with, but you have an Algos that you rode, you can actually play this on the grade 2 turn, especially against Force, because they have like 10k base. So if your 9ks are not doing it, your 9ks are not hitting, 11k boys, so that you guys can hit them multiple times. Just play a booster behind your Vanguard, and that's 3 attacks on Force, which is really good. I'll actually leave these out here as well. But we ran 4 Wheel Assault next. So Wheel Assault is really good because it makes it so that you have kind of like OTT, like when the last set for OTT just came out. Not this most recent one, don't get it confused with the Tsukiyomi set, but before this, in the form of Circle Magus and Core Magus, OTT actually had a double ride target, like a double ideal grade 1 ride target. So your ideal grade 1 ride target in this deck is definitely Nikolos, but if you can't, then going into Wheel Assault is really good as well, because it provides you a plus as well. And this one is a guaranteed plus for a counter boss, and this one is a maybe plus because you have to hit the Algos, which most of the time you do, but a lot of times, like during the games, I would ride this and not get Algos. But if you don't get Algos, that probably means that you already have it in your hand, so you don't need it anyways. So definitely going to Wheel Assault if you cannot. Also, this card's really, really good on like Glory Maelstrom turns and turns where you're trying to finish them, because if this card boosts, it can switch to the position of 2 units. So you can actually, there was one point against someone where I had a Riptide here on the left rearguard circle and a Riptide behind, and I had a Wheel Assault on the other side on the other circle. So basically what I did is I attacked with this Riptide once I got to the 4th battle. I swung with Tidal Assault over here on Excel Circle twice, then I swung with Vanguard, then I swung with Riptide, then I swung with this, and then I switched these 2 positions, and then I swung with Riptide. So very, very good, can provide you a lot of good multi-attacks that it's very hard for your opponent to block. So definitely be wary of that. Then to round out the grade 1 lineup, I only ran 10 grade 1s. I ran 2 Light Penguin Soldier. I will be honest with you guys, I never once in the entire tournament of the 11 rounds that I played, including top 8, I never used the skill that counter charges with this card and retires it. I basically only used the skill that gives 5k to the unit in front of it if I was playing against Force. So if my Tidal Assault is not good enough to hit an actual good, like a number, and I know that it's going to be restanding, you basically just rest this to give power to a unit that you know is going to be restanding. So you want to do it on your Tidal Assaults basically and your Algoses. Other than that, just leave it as an AK booster. If you really need it for the counter charge, do it. but it never came up in a situation where I needed to use it to get my counterblast back, because eventually your opponent has to give you counterblast or they die anyways. So yeah. We run 6 front triggers for the lulz, and also to trick my opponents. I ran 2 of each of the front triggers that they currently have. The build before I received it was actually 3 of these and 3 of these, and I think that this is a lot more efficient, because even at some point there was like 2 of my opponents at least that counted my triggers, and they were like, okay, and I was already out of front triggers, but they were counting for my fronts, and because they hadn't seen my draw triggers out of my deck yet, they just assumed that I had more front triggers because I was running 3 different sets, and they were like, he has to have more, and so they're like, okay, he has 2 front triggers left in his deck and some amount of heals, when really I just had draws and heals in my deck. So then they overguard and they overcommit more than they need to, because they believe that a 2 pass is going to be too easy because I have fronts that exist in my deck. So they just never 2 pass me. They always no pass me with more cards than necessary, because they think that I'm running more front triggers. So with the draw triggers, obviously running 4 Pascal, these are your PG draws. Running 2 of the Otter, obviously every single time that I saw it, came in freaking clutch. I kid you guys not, like, whether I checked it offensively or defensively, always came in clutch, never a burden to me. And then 4 heals, obviously. So that was that, and I had I'm gonna mention this because I had someone ask me why I was doing this during the tournament. I ran 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Excel ones. So sometimes, like, I guess I think that you should always run both markers in your deck. Like, no matter if you're running Protect and you think that Protect 2 is bad, you should always run both markers in case you just find yourself in a scenario where that other marker is useful to you. In my case, I never actually used Excel 1 because I think Excel 2 is way too good, but in a case where I pushed my opponent to 5 and I needed to end the game right there, like let's say I have a very bad hand against Melody, but because I had a very good grade 2 turn, I was able to push them to 5, I would probably go Excel 1 and try to force out the game instead of going Excel 2, because they probably wouldn't be able to block it. But besides that, I played good old 8 Excel 2s. So obviously this came in handy. Excel 2 is the best option with this deck in my opinion, unless you're in the scenario like I just previously stated. So definitely be wary of the game state, be wary of the scenarios that you guys are put in, that you put yourselves in, and basically with this deck, I was learning as I played through the tournament, which was kind of crazy. Like I was learning how to more efficiently beat certain matchups throughout the tournament. So if you guys ever need matchup help or anything like that, be sure to check out my Patreon down below in the description. Not gonna really talk about that a lot here, but definitely check that out if that's something that you guys are interested in, matchup help or just like asking me questions or getting tutored in general. But with that being said, I'm gonna switch back to the main part of the video. Peace, guys. And we're back. So basically we're gonna talk about the matchups now. So let's talk about my matchups. I'm gonna pull them up real quick because I wrote them down on a little spreadsheet thingy. What's also on Facebook, if you guys are friends with me on Facebook, it's there as well. But okay, let's get right into it here. I think I'm really close to finding it. Okay, yes, I found the post. All right, so my number was was 53. So let's like kind of read through the rounds, and I'll just explain how my matchups went for those of you who are interested in matchup help with certain things. So first I'm going to explain why I ended up going into this event with Aquaforce. So Aquaforce, the only reason I went into it, I kid you not, was because I was so sure that it had such a great matchup against Melody. I actually didn't even end up playing against that many Melody people, but the Melody players I did play against, I did like really, really well against them. I had actually played Justin, like I said earlier, in like a match of a best of 5, and I believe I won every single match except for one. So the matchup with Melody is just incredible with this deck, and that's what I was expecting to see a lot of, especially before the ban list. So I decided to go with Aquaforce, knowing that if I played it well and I played to my strengths, I could win the event. I also knew that Nova Grappler was going to be the second strongest comer into this event, or the second biggest contender coming into this event. And shout out to John Howard. He actually played me right before the event started. We played like 2 or 3 games, and I messed up big time in the first game, basically giving him, you know, a lot of resources and a lot of like open space and not really like rushing him down and stuff like that. And that was a mistake because he won that game very easily. So after that, I just adjusted my playstyle during the couple games just to like playtest what worked and what didn't, and I was able to take those values with me into the next of the round, into the rest of the rounds, where I fought a lot of Nova Grappler players, and I feel like the matchups were pretty easy after I fought John. So let's talk about it. So round 1, I actually get paired up with Justin, which is actually hilarious and awful at the same time, because Justin was the only one who knew my exact deck list, really, or like a very, like, he basically knew almost all the cards that I was running in the deck. He knew how I was going to run it, how I was going to attack, what my strategies were, and all that stuff. So we had played like a lot the previous night, so he actually, I wore him down, and I actually never saw Glory Maelstrom. I think we both came to the agreement that if I ever saw Glory Maelstrom, the game would have just been over. But I actually rode regular Maelstrom twice, which is really bad against Melody. And it's not like terrible, but I was able to get him down to 2 cards in hand. And then when I attacked him with my Vanguard, he checked a damage trigger, and then he was able to just survive off of the damage trigger because most of my attacks couldn't hit him on the final attack. And so basically he let my 4th attack hit, and he got a damage trigger. He had 0 cards in hand, so he added his crit trigger power to Sonata, which made Sonata 23, and I discarded 2 for my Vanguard Maelstrom to restand, and my Vanguard Maelstrom attacked for 15, needing a 1 to pass, and I just didn't get it. So the next turn he did Melody things and then just killed me. So I lost to him, but thankfully he stayed mostly undefeated throughout the entire tournament. So this is like an extreme grind for me, because at this point I lost the first round, and I had to like win every other round without dropping a round if I was going to win the event, which I ended up doing. So that was great. Round 2, I actually fight against Nova Grappler Heroes. I basically rushed him really hard really early, because my perception on that deck is that people kind of like damage deny it, and they like counterblast starve them. But what that does is that just pushes you guys into a late game where you're at a higher damage. So that's actually like less ideal in my opinion, because you don't have damage to take later in the game. You just have to like start dropping all these cards for spinning Valiant skill, and that's how you eventually die. So I rushed him really, really, really hard, knowing that I had a Glory Maelstrom in my hand. So I put him to 5 with regular Maelstrom turn, and between my grade 2 turn and all that stuff, him being a 9k grade 2, me being able to get the classic ride Algos, have a Tidal Assault and a Coral Assault on the rearguard circle, like that's just a lot of attacks on grade 2. So between grade 2 and grade 3, I was able to put him to 5 damage and not a lot of cards in hand. So basically I was at 2 damage, and I forced him to use Spinning Valiant's Counterblast 4 to try to deal me some damage and try to like win out the game, which was kind of impossible to win out, because that would mean that I would literally have to check no triggers, and he would have to check like front trigger or something like that. So when he attacked with Spinning Valiant, he didn't check any triggers, and not only that, but I checked a draw trigger on defense. So you guys are gonna hear me talking about a lot of draw triggers in this deck review profile thing, because I ran 6 draw triggers, and I kid you not, I think they were like the most like OP thing ever. Like whenever I hit a draw trigger, there was never a point where I hit a draw where I wasn't happy that I hit the draw trigger, and that I wish that it was something else. So definitely 6 draw came in super handy. But then next turn I just rode Glory Maelstrom, and I killed him. Round 3, so that made me 1-1 after round 2. Round 3, I fight against the Aquaforce mirror match, of course, Cameron, who I mentioned before, Big Cam. I basically won the die roll. I got to go first, and then I had a very good start to finish. I believe that Cameron had something really bad, like he either had to ride like Glory Maelstrom on his first ride or something like that. But either way, I went first. Like, I basically was just like going after him. He wasn't hitting any damage triggers, so I was able to just rush him really efficiently, and then I just rode Glory for game. That's what I think the mirror match is really who high rolls. And then even if you do high roll, like, you have to have the most efficient setup as well, because if your opponent goes second and has the efficient setup but you don't, then that could be a huge problem for you. So that made me 2-1. Going into round 4, I fight against Nova Grappler Beast Deity. He was really good, but it really came down to my attack order just being so good. And like I said, this is something that I learned from playing against John, is that if you attack in the correct attack order and you attack the correct units, you get rid of the, you make the board state what you want to be, because Aquaforce actually doesn't need that many resources to do their multi-attacks, and Nova Grappler does. They usually need a lot of CB to keep up with their multi-attacks. Like with things like Tidal Assault, and Maelstrom, regular Maelstrom, you're able to do multiple attacks with units that don't require anything but a soul or just discarding cards. So when your opponent damage starves you, you can actually damage starve your opponent more efficiently than them, and then also do them damage at the same time while destroying their board. So like I said, Nova Grappler, easy matchup. After round 4, I was 3-1. Round 5, I fought Beast Deity again. I pretty much steamrolled him, and by a steamroll, I mean that I literally checked double front trigger on my first Maelstrom turn, and I restood for game. So after I attacked with double front trigger with Maelstrom, like, it's just really hard to block if your opponent's on grade 2, and it was pretty much sack at that point. But front triggers are just so good in this deck, like, it's crazy. Like, with the restand with Maelstrom, but also if you check a front trigger on Glory, like, your opponent probably can't even recover unless they check a damage trigger. So, yeah. That made me 4-1. Round 6, I played against Melody. I went first, and I actually first rode Glory, which a lot of people think is bad, but I actually chose to first ride Glory because I had a regular Maelstrom in my hand, but I saw that he was on grade 2 and he was at 4 damage, so I rode regular Glory knowing that he would still have to block each one of my attacks on the board with a 1-card block, and also that he couldn't intercept, and he had like Lisa-Lot on the fields, and Lisa-Lot and that other card that draws him a card when it's on hit. So I basically called out Glory. I counterbusted one. My front row didn't get any power, but I just started attacking his Vanguard, and basically I attacked with Glory. I attacked for Tidal Assault first, and he took the damage and didn't hit a trigger, and then I attacked with Glory, and then on Glory I hit a front trigger. So it was just impossible for him to block all the rest of the attacks with 1 card, and even though he had like 6 cards in his hand or 7 cards, he had to just no guard like my attacks after that, and then he didn't check a heal trigger on defense. Also, he showed me his hand after, and his hand was like 6 grade 3s or something like that, or like 4 to 5 grade 3s, but that's honestly just like the hand of playing Melody, honestly. So I won that. That made me 5-1. For round 7, I had a really funny story that happened, and this is where I give special shout-outs to Miss China Ross from the Vision team. So I don't know what happened, but going into round 7, I was reading where I was supposed to be at on the online pairings on my phone the entire time, and when I read the online pairings for round 7, something weird happened, and my phone displayed that I was number 53, and I was supposed to be at table 53. So I went to table 53, and I start playing this guy. We're sitting down, and then suddenly the announcement comes up for people to stand up if they don't have an opponent across from them. And China comes over to my game and basically is confused why I'm playing this guy, because she knows the guy that I'm playing against. She's friends with him. So she's like, why? She's like, are you X2 or something now? And I was like, no, I'm X1 still. And she was like, well, he's X3, so how are you playing him? And then we looked at the match slip, and my number wasn't even on the match slip at the table that I was playing at. So I literally had to grab my stuff with the help of Noman and China. I grabbed my stuff really quick and just found my table, and I made it like just in time to be able to like still, my opponent like gave me leniency and actually still like gave me the ability to play them, which was really awesome of them. I wish I knew their names so I could shout them out too. But thank you. You know who you are, Nova Grappler player that I play. Actually, I believe that the Nova Grappler player that I played in round 7 was also the undefeated Great Nature premium player from day 2. So if you guys know who that is, definitely comment his name down below, or say something like that so that I can give him his props, if anything, in the comments. But he definitely just allowed me to play him. And then, like I said, the Nova Grappler matchup for me is pretty easy, so I killed him with an early glory. He tried to damage deny me. Damage denying just doesn't really work against Aquaforce, considering that if they make it to glory, it's one counterblast is all that it takes for them to do like a devastating turn. They don't really need anything else but to slap down cards and counterblast 1 for glory and get power. So I killed him with glory, and yeah. So then they added an additional round, and of course this is round 8. I was playing against Mr. Andrew Williams. He's a very good player, and I believe for teams, his team won the Texas regionals with him, Noman, and someone else that I'm forgetting or I don't know the name of. But it was a really good game. He was playing Nova Grappler, and I thought that it was going to be an easy game, but he was actually he was actually going Excel 1 with Beast Deity and playing the 3k card that has 2 critical, so that he's able to go into a Zerd Dragon, swing at me for 13 with 2 crit, and it was just like too much for me to like it was too early in the game for me to have actual shield in my hand, so I actually had to take it, and I got really lucky and checked a heal at one point, and that actually prevented me from taking more damage that would have lost me the game. So then I was able to just go into glory, and then I got Andrew with glory, and it came down to a 5k difference in shield, literally, like for the win. So now I go into deck check for top 8. I get deck checked. I'm good. You guys know after my event in Cali how scared I am of deck checks now, because we got an automatic round loss in Cali for that, and I was just like swore to myself that I would never lose that way ever again. So then top 8, I played the mirror match. Going into the B bracket, top 8, I had notable names like Hank Kwan in the bracket with me or whatever. He was playing Neo Nectar and was undefeated, so I believe he was the first seed out of Swiss. So he was 8-0 with Neo Nectar, which was wild. But we had 1 Neo Nectar, 3 Aquaforce, 1 Melody, 1 DP, 1 Kagura, and 1... I'm forgetting what the very last thing was. 1 Kagura, 1 D-Police, 3 Aquaforce, 1 Neo Nectar, 1 Melody, and I believe it was 1 Grand Blue or something like that. Like whatever the last one was, I forgot. But basically, I ended up getting paired with. I didn't want to fight the Maelstrom mirrors, so I was actually hoping that other people knocked them out before I would have to fight the mirror, because I just don't like playing the mirror with any deck. Like it really just comes down to like who high rolls and gets it. And who has the best setup, and I don't like that. I rather just like play to the best of my ability against another deck where I know the matchup, and I can just play to the matchup rather than play to whoever has the best, most broken cards in their hand and whoever goes first. So we actually end up going into top 8. I win my top 8 match, which actually ends up being a Maelstrom mirror match. I just went first, and I had glory, so the game was pretty steamroll because I went first, so I was able to get all of my attack combos off. He wasn't really hitting damage triggers, and then I just killed him like that. Top 4, I ended up fighting against Kagura. He was his tactics were really strange because he had like turns that were supposed to be kill turns, but he was attacking my rear guards to damage deny me because he was too scared of getting Glory Maelstrom. So I just let my rear guards go a lot of the time, and then like I just built up hand, and then I actually didn't have Glory Maelstrom for a long time, but once I finally did have Glory Maelstrom, I just rode it, and then that definitely puts him in a predicament where he has to eventually deal me damage. So he rode Dragonic Overlord at the end at a point, and because I let all my rear guards go and I hadn't played any new ones, he had to attack my Vanguard to give me at least some damage. I had more than enough to block the end, attacking 3 times. So I just blocked that. After I took the first one, I blocked the other 2. And then the next turn, I just gloried, played like Riptide and a bunch of stuff. And then he just died to Glory Maelstrom. Then top 2, finals was literally disgusting. There will be a video of gameplay of it up on my channel as soon as Bushiroad can get it to me. But basically, it was an extreme steamroll. Like, I went first, I rode, he rode, I attacked him on grade 2 turn, and then he didn't hit any damage triggers, so I put him to 4. Then I attacked him on Maelstrom turn, like I rode regular Maelstrom the next turn, and he 2'd to pass my Maelstrom, and I checked a front trigger, and then I checked a heal trigger, putting the power to Maelstrom so that it would pass, and then he had to take my other damage as well, so it puts him to 6 basically, and I restood Maelstrom. And so when I restand Maelstrom, I attack him again with the final attack being Maelstrom that got a front trigger and a heal. And he basically, the best that he could do was use most of all of his hand to 1 to pass it. And I checked a front trigger right there. And then I checked, like, the only thing that I checked was a front trigger, but that was more than enough, obviously. And then I did him a damage for his 6 damage, and he actually 6 damage healed on 2, which I'm not hating against at all. Like, I think that he completely deserved that because that was gross. But then he rode Die Liner. I was at 1 damage, and he attacked my Vanguard with Die Liner, having 2 crit because he went Force 1, and then he used the skill. So he attacked with Die Liner with 2 crit. I took it. He ends up checking a crit trigger, so I end up taking 3 damage, and then the next turn, I just rode Glory, and it wasn't even, like, a competition after that. So then that's how I ended up winning regionals. So you guys should have already seen my deck profile portion of the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed the matchup / tournament review part of the video. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the video there. Definitely, like I said again, thank you to all the names that I said. Thank you to all the fans and just supporters in general that came up and supported me. Thank you, Bushiroad, for offering such a wonderful event, with a wonderful prize to, you know, take someone to Japan for free. This will be my 2nd time going, so I'll try as much as I can to represent myself and all the people that support me going into Worlds this year. I'll try harder than I did. Not that I didn't try hard the first time, but yeah, it's like I got scrubbed the first time, so I'll try to do a lot better this time. Do a lot more prep, a lot more research going into it. I have access to a lot more cards now. I didn't back then, so definitely be a lot more prepared going into this World Championships. And so yeah, shout out to Vision, shout out to Team Triple Sleeve. Even though I'm not officially affiliated with either one, I think that they're both really cool, and they both have really cool people on it. So shout out to both of them. Shout out to my friends from Georgia. Shout out to my friend that let me borrow the decks, Sakib, and just all the shout outs. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being patient with me and waiting for this video to go live, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.